Welcome to this series for Power Query Transformation. The first of this kind was us showing how we can get data from different sources. Now we want to get into the very basics of what we can do in Power Query Transformation and data cleaning. If you are just coming meeting this series for the first time, you may want to check our previous series so you can have like you can connect very well to an ongoing transformation that we are doing. So let's get straight into it. First and foremost, I remember in the last series, I taught us how to get data into our Power Query. Now we're working with a fresh new data. This is a case where we want to show you how to clean up data, maybe like remove things like duplicate or handle missing values or any sort, depending on the nature of the data. So let's get first of all get our data into the Power Query, and then we can see what the nature of the data is like, and then see what is it that we need to do from there. Because I already know, so I already know that our data set is in Excel. So by the way, all the data set that we'll be working with throughout this series, I will have them backed up in Google Drive, and then I'll put the links so that you can also be practicing as I'm doing, which is the best form of learning and training. When I'm doing, you are doing, that's the best way you can learn it. You cannot learn it by just watching me do everything. All right. So also check for the description, check on the description where I have put the link for the data set so you can download it and be doing from your end. That way you learn better. So let's get our data. Remember, the first time I started by clicking here. By the way, there are also other mediums, like other ways to get that data. There is what we call get data icon on your Power BI. So if I click here, it can also lead me to also other common data sources like I've shown you, right? So I can just easily click on Excel workbook, or I can just easily click here just to show different ways where you can get it. If it is in a CSV, I'll also click here. But because the data set I know is in Excel, so I can just click here. So it navigates us to where that data is. Just go to my Google Drive. Yes. Transformation practices. Yes. And sales, yeah, we deal with messy sales data. I've kind of like, by the way, because of what we are gonna teach, I was able to get to ChatGPT to build me, say, a synthetic data, which is like data that are not actually real, but can help us to deliver on the lesson. So, these data you see are ChatGPT generated, just to put it out there just for you to know. I didn't get it from anywhere. I just told ChatGPT what is it that I want to teach, and it got me the data set to go with it. So messy data set, which are also some of the things you might need in your real life projects, right? Yeah, just for us to have a more direct approach towards what is it that we want to do today. So we're gonna get this and then put it straight into Power Query. Yeah. So it's coming out, try to connect. Remember what I told you guys as it's loading, that the sheet might contain the table. Sometimes it might give you suggested tables, sometimes it might come up as a sheet. Most times where you see sheet means that Excel maybe didn't really see much of a structured data from the sheet. So it's just gonna give you all the data that it sees on that sheet and the way it is. So when we preview, you see this is data that we saw from that particular sheet. So what we do is, because of, you can even see some null and some things already. So what we're gonna do is to load it into our Power Query using transform data. Once you click transform data, it takes us straight into what's here, yeah, into Power Query editor. So this Power Query editor is where we then look at the data, clean up the data and everything around it. I know I may have touched on this from the previous things. I mean, this is not the first time I'm doing anything on Power Query, but just for those that are just meeting this for the first time, I've explained some of the things that you need to understand about Power Query. One of them being these lines that you see here, this green line that you see here, you see in the cases where it is complete, it shows you that it is complete. So you can see that the line is full. Where it is not complete, you can see some gray part, meaning that that data has some nulls. That's simply what it means. So it's kind of like a column quality that kind of like gives you an idea of column profile, an idea of what that profile looks like, whether it is full, how many percentage of valid data that is in it, how many that are error, and how many that are empty as well. So you can see there are no basic errors per se, but there are also um some empty or null values. However, it may not detect the error here is based on its own calculation. There may also be some profound errors in your data that Power BI may not tell that it is error. What it considers as error is once it is invalid. For instance, in a case where you have a mistyped date instead of maybe somebody that wants to type 3rd May, then the person typed maybe 19th May, and then the person typed it 5/19, meaning that you are making the month to be 19. In such cases, these are the kind of errors that Power Query might detect, right? But if I type rubbish under this product, once it is a text, it's not gonna detect it as an error. Just for you to understand the kind of errors that Power Query detects. So it's left for you to do a very high level error tracing and look at the validity of the data you have so you know which ones are error and which ones are not error. So what are the things that we can see here? Like I said, the first thing we want to do is to look at how do we remove duplicates or handle missing values or stuff like that. Now, first thing is, if this is a sales data, there is always one thing that must be common. There is what we call a non-null column. A non-null column means that there is a column that cannot be null. There is a column that cannot be null. So in such cases, if you find any null in that column, then that means you have to take away all the nulls from that column. For instance, if you're dealing with a sales table that has customer name and dates, a date of transaction. If there is no customer name and date of transaction, for instance, or if there is a missing value from any of those, it doesn't make complete sense because how are you going to make an account of that? For look at this. So there is no customer name here. There is no date here. All know that there is an order, there is a quantity, and there is the amount of sales. So in real practice, right, the first thing you're gonna do as a data analyst or as a data professional is to liaise with maybe the teams, maybe the sales team, wherever this data is coming from, or whoever is handling the entering of this data. Or you need to first of all liaise and make sure that this is the way it is from the source. So you know your actual steps. So what I'm saying in essence is you cannot just remove anything based on your own intuition as well. Before you remove anything, make sure you liaise with other people and confirm that, oh, this is the way it is, and then you then know that okay, you don't need to deal with this data and stuff like that. So in a case where we have things like well, let's call this a sales data. Let's give it a name. I like to name. So this is where I can name this data. I can come here and name it, which is here. I can name it here. or I can right click here and rename it. I can rename it from sales to maybe data, just to show you different ways. I can rename it from anywhere, either here or here. These are some where I can rename it, right? Then the next thing is I begin to see the way I usually do this is there is an orderly way I do that. I first of all look at my columns one by one. Now, what are the things in this column is a text. That means the data type is correct, right? Now, this is a date. That means the data type is correct. This is where you can see the different data types for that particular column. You have decimal. So if, for instance, where I have text, I'm having numbers, that means I need to correct it. And in some cases, they may not be defined. They may not be defined. Let me show you. So when we brought these cells, automatically Power BI does some automatic transformation in it. If I start from the source, or maybe like navigation, now this is the true state of this data before it was brought in. This is the true state of it. But Power BI takes some automatic steps, which are all the things you see. Most of the automatic steps are not the navigation and promoted headers, which is Power BI will feel like if you look at this, you see the column names are on the first column. So what Power BI does is what we call use first header as what column. That's what we call promote header. So Power BI apply that step, and you can see when you apply that, and where can we see that? We can see that here, use first column as headers. So in a case where Power BI does not do that for you, you can also do it for yourself. If this is how your data was loaded and there was no automatic step in it, please, the next thing to do is what? To first of all define your columns so you know what you are doing. So how do you define your column? You can come under the transform tab and use first row as well, headers. I think you can also see it on the home tab as well. Yes, under here, use first row as well, headers. So anywhere you can also find it. So once you click it, that's what we call promote what headers. That's the defined name for it, or defined step for it, right? And then after doing that, the next thing Power BI does is what? Now that you have defined your columns, it begins to define the data types of the column, which is what you see as change type. Power BI does that automatic as well, right? So what Power BI does here is to define the data type. So when you see ABC123, means that it is undefined data type. What that means is you have to come here and then select a specific data type for that, which I mean, for cases that are like have text or names or anything like text, just use what text, right? For the ones that are date, we have date and we have date time. We have numbers. You see how they're kind of like, you notice some demarcation here. This demarcation is all about what? Numerical what type of data data sets or types of data. Why this part is date type of what data, and we have what text. So the demarcation will kind of like give you a clue about the grouping of the data types, right? This is all about number. Why this is all about date? Why this is only about the text? This true or false is kind of like in the cases where you have it's all called binary settings like true or false. Yeah, or zeros and one. These are like different words you can use to define it, right? So, but Power BI has done that for us, automatically applied all its relevant data types across all the columns that we have. So you see here is defined as text, here is defined as date, here is defined as text because it's just text. Now here is a quantity, so it will be defined as what? A number. And in some cases, maybe decimal place, if it is there's what called float in Python. Yeah, so like count natural numbers or what we call counting numbers is just whole number, which is whole number. But the things that are maybe like in decimals will go into decimals. Now, if you're dealing with money, for instance, we have a different case here that For instance, in a case like price, which is money, what it does, a specific thing it does is just to put it in a defined two decimal place. That's just simply what it does. Why percentage is just to what? To percentage, what percentage just is to times that in by what? 100. That is what percentage. Whatever number that is gonna times it by 100. That is percentage data type, right? So now if you go to where Power BI brought us, you see what I just said now, right? So customer name has been defined as a text because of, so what Power BI does is it checks the values under that columns and then automatically it assumes what that type should be. And in some cases, it might get it wrong. Some you might get it, but in most cases, it will get it right. Maybe for instance, here, maybe I don't want it to be decimal. I want it to come up as what? As fixed decimal number, which is month, which means two decimal places, right? So what Power BI does, because Power BI has applied that step automatically, it's asking me, do I want it as a new step or do I want to replace the current? So because Power BI has applied what it knows to be, what it thought to be the data types, I can say replace. I don't need to start adding new steps. So replace what you already had as what. So it's gonna replace it from decimal to what? To what? To fixed decimal, meaning two decimal place. That's just simply what it does. There is nothing more, nothing less. And why do I have, when you are dealing with money, that's usually when I like to have this. Although it's not consequential whether it's in fixed decimal or in decimal. It doesn't really mean, right? Because in analytics, you can also just define it the way you want it, right? Yeah, so quantity is like a counting number, so that's why you see it's in a whole number. Now, after handling making sure that all your profiles are the state of your columns are okay, right? In some cases, if it is cases where you have other columns that you don't want, you can select any column and want to remove it. Assuming, let me just show you, right? If I want to remove this column quantity, I can just select this column. You see the way I've selected this column and hit on this and hit on this. This is one way I can remove the column. And then I remove this column. No, sorry, not row. Sorry, this is what I mean. Column. This is for row. This is for column. So I say remove the column. Right. Now, assuming that I removed that column mistakenly and I want to undo my action, right? Or take back what I did, there is no undo in Power Query. I know some of you must have encountered that, right? How you go back in Power Query is that what? Click deleting your last step. So if you look here, if you see my cursor, this is all your applied steps. So if there's anything that you did that you want to undo, all you need to do is just to delete the last step and it will go back to what it was before that action. So because we mistakenly deleted that column, I can come back here and delete the last step and it brings it back. That's how one way to make undo in Power Query. Now straight into what we want to do here. So customer name, customer day. So first and foremost, if I remove other dates, there is no other day. So because I need to make sure that I work with actual days, so I'm gonna remove all the nulls. But before I remove it, what I usually do, right? I usually first of all see if there is some sort of connect. So what that means is I want to see all the nulls from this particular table. So if I click on the nulls, what I need to do is to make sure if they make sense to me, right? Because if this is a sales data, then how can there not be an order date and there is a price? When did it occur? We need to know when it occurred. And again, like I said, if there is an order date, who bought it? Yes, we know that Doodad was bought and this quantity was bought and this was bought. and we know when it was bought, but who bought it? You don't know. So, like I said, in real life, you need to what liaise with the sales team to make sure you get all the missing values filled in if they are mistaken by human error. But where they are not, and you need to just deal with it yourself, then the common thing to do is to ask yourself what that table is all about. This table is all about what? Sales data. And you cannot make any complete sense if you're talking about sales without the primary events or persons in that sales, which is what? When it happened and who bought it. These are key values of for this particular word table. So in the cases where you don't have them, you have to remove them, right? So it's just for us to see. This is usually the things I do. I look at it. I explore the data to see what it is like. I can just go back and then I also explore this one again and see what are those that don't have names. Do they have dates? Yes, just like the way we said that there are those that don't have dates, but they have names. And there are those that don't have names and they have dates. Meanwhile, in all of these, they always have product. One thing that is always common in them is they always have product and quantity and sales. So you just have to make sense of what is it that you don't need, right? So the only column that is filled up here is the product, right? So what I'm gonna do is to remove what the nulls from this. Okay, it. If I remove the nulls, I see now. Before I remove the nulls, I need to show you something. If you notice here, we have 120 rows. That's the original data set of this, right? And in some cases, right, in some cases, especially in a case where I'm not too sure of what is it that I'm removing, what I can do is I can duplicate this table, see, duplicate this table, just in case, right? So this is the original, the way it is, and perhaps, so maybe I can call this my working sales data, right? Or I can say transformed sales data. Yeah, transformed. Yeah. So just to be on the safer side, this is kind of the things I do. So and then I may just unable the load is just kind of like, please don't load it. Just let it stay here, but don't load it into the Power BI model. That's the safest thing I do. Just in case if this falls back to all the steps that I've applied, and then I need to start. So it will be very, very easier for me to start from the original data than going back and forth with what I've already done. This is also one important thing to do. As a clinical data analyst, you have to be very aware of this, right? So let's go there. Now I'm gonna uncheck the nulls because I need to know the customer that have bought the goods. Right? So I need to know the customer name. And if there is no date on this, we need to know, we also have to remove those that have name but they don't have date. It doesn't make sense to me. At least two of them, oh sorry, this is supposed to be, yeah, okay, yeah, correct. What I have in there, so hang on. Mhm, mhm. Alright, so what that means is for all those that have name, there is a customer date on them, right? But why, if I remove this, why are we still having, okay, let me check it back just to see something. Let me know what's going on. Okay, so there are nulls here, right? So remember, it was 120 when we removed the nulls here. Now it is 102, right? Now let's remove the nulls here and see if that rows will reduce. If we uncheck the nulls here, now from 102 is now 82, right? Very good. Now, actually, I'm not supposed to be seeing this. This is not supposed to be, this is supposed to be just like the O we have here. This is supposed to be 100% valid because there are no nulls again. There are no nulls again. It's supposed to be 100% valid. But let's leave that. Maybe it will come back when we do another step. Now, now we see that there is every customer that every customer here has what another date. Now, another thing we may want to do is to make sure that there are no duplicates anywhere, right? Just to make sure that we don't have any duplicates. So how do we make sure that we don't have any duplicates? Um, um, so what we'll do is, first of all, select all the columns, right? But before we select all the columns, there is what I usually do, which is I like to count my rows before deleting my duplicate, just to make sure that this counting rows in the cases where you cannot your rows is not up to what up to 1,000. That's where I can count the rows. But because I'm in 82, I can always see when there is a reduction in the row, just to let us be aware of that, right? So here, before I delete the column, I have to mark all the whole column. Now that I've selected here, all I need just to hold my shift and come to the last column here. Now that's what we call select all. That's another way you can select all. There are different ways to select all. If you are selecting columns that are consecutively, all you need is just to select the first row, the first column, and go, it could be maybe I want to select from here to here, or from here to here. So all you need is just to select the first range of the columns you want to deal with, hold your shift, and select the last column in the range of column you want to deal with. For instance, let's say I want to select this thing. That's how I did it. Now, if I want to select all the column, I just select the first row and go to the last row, hold my shift key and select. It will mark all of them, right? Now, if I want to select, there's what we call picking the rows selectively, not consecutively. Selectively means I can pick this, and maybe pick this one, and maybe pick this one. So in such cases, you cannot hold your control, you cannot hold your shift, you hold your what? Control. So if I want to select selectively, I select the first column, hold my control, select another one, still holding the control, select another one. You see different types of selection that I do. The consecutive ones or the ones that are in range, and then the ones that you pick yourself one by one, which is, so if you're selecting in range, you use shift. If you're selecting one by one, you use what? Control, just for you to be aware of the action that I'm taking from my end, which you cannot see. Now, we want to select all the columns. So I hold my shift key, select all, right? Now, the next thing I want to do is I can go to the transform, I can right click. I can right click from anywhere. Now, if I right click, you see remove duplicates. So what that means is if there is any duplicate across all the columns, now that is what you need to remove. If there is any duplicate across all the columns, that's the main duplicate that we need to what? We need to remove. Therefore, we say remove duplicates. That's why we are selecting all of them. So now there are actual duplicates, which you can see here now. That our column has reduced from 82 to what? To 77, means that there were repeated values across all the what? All the columns, which doesn't make sense. You cannot have repeated values across all the columns. You see why I selected all the columns. You might have repeated values in let's say column name and other dates, but maybe their product may differ, which can happen. Maybe the same person bought different things the same day. That is a case where it can happen. The same person bought different things on the same day. That's a case where you have the customer name will appear here twice, and the same other date will appear here twice. But in a case, you cannot have the same event repeated across all the columns. That's why you have to select all of them, just for you to make sure that everything you are doing makes sense. You see what I was telling you guys about when we remove the null here. I told you when we take the next action, that's when it will be what apply. Now, our customer name and customer and other dates are now what 100%, right? Good. Then we ask ourselves here again, we've dealt with what removing duplicates and still handling missing values while doing that. Now we ask ourselves, and like I said, in real life, you have to comply with what the other end of where this data is coming from, just to make sure that you verify everything before you remove any null. That is what I would do, right? So in cases like this, so this guy bought a product, how many quantity? It wasn't recorded, and there is a price to it. How are we gonna make sense of all the quantities? And another thing to check is, I mean, there is huge, for me, 28% to 71% is a huge data loss, right? So before you make this kind of change, you have to make sure that you verify either that you get the complete values from this before you remove a 28% of the data, or you have to find ways to fill it up. But this is just one of the ways you have to deal with it, right? But for practice sake, we have to also remove the nulls here so that all the nulls, everything will make sense to us, right? And we can see there is still null here, meaning that somebody bought, we know the person's name, we know when the person bought it, we know what the person bought, we know how many quantity, but there is no recorded what price for that. It doesn't make sense to us, right? Remember, when we deleted the nulls, we moved from that null to what? From 77 to 55, right? So always watch your column profile down here, which is something that shows you the reduction in your data. So you see what I was telling you of the kind of data loss we just had now from 77 to 55. That's a huge data loss. That's why you have to be very, very careful before removing anything in real life scenarios. So there are no price in this, so we have to also remove the nulls. So make sure that we are working with complete data across all the columns. Now that we've removed all the nulls from the price, it will reduce from 55 to what? To 48, right? That's that. Now, what other things can we do from here? I mean, in some cases, the kind of things that I do, I check, I see what are the kind of, maybe in some cases, they may not be in the same capital letter or in the same cases. Maybe you want to put all of them in the same case. Maybe, you just check some things that doesn't really make sense and then you remove them. So this is all about what? This is all about handling what? Missing data and removing duplicates. In our next step, we'll do a full transformation, and then we'll look at how we can rename the columns, change data types, which are some of the things that we have touched, replace values, and maybe like add conditions and stuff like that. So we'll be taking it one by one. All right.